He's organizing a tea for me. What's there to organize? Oh, get the new box. Okay, I'm fine. With or without the tea.
Without the ounce of tea.
Okay, fine. We'll survive in Mitzvah. Okay. We started this Inyan on Nun Aleph, the second line. So he pointed out, after this long discussion, that the Gilui of Elokus that is represented in Hashem Havaya is Bli Gvul, because it is a reflection of the Moir, and just as the Moir is Bli Gvul, so too is the Oyer Bli Gvul. And Gvul and Bli Gvul are not be'erech one to the other. And we discussed last week the meaning of these words, not be'erech zelozeh. It isn't the question of one being bigger than the other. But that one cannot be recognized from the other perspective. Bli Gvul cannot recognize Gvul, and Gvul cannot recognize Bli Gvul. So, this is a concept, of tremendous depth. But in everything we have to limit how far we go. But it was clear enough to understand. We say Ein Sof, we don't mean Ein Sof that it's an unlimited number of pieces. Because in fact, there cannot be unlimited number of pieces. Anything that is composed of pieces is by definition limited. If the unit of the composite is limited, then automatically has to be limited. Because a certain number of units that compose this entity. Ein Sof is a different entity. It's a different presence. It's not quantitative or even qualitative. It is a different presence completely. And the difference, in a nutshell, Gvul is a created entity. Gvul does not exist except for the fact that it's being created. Ein Sof is a primary existence. It doesn't need to be created because it's primary. Like we give the mashal from the sun. The sun is the whole thing. The sun is a created entity. But within the realm of world, sun has a unique property, a unique quality. That it is an essence. Light to the sun is not an error. is not one of its possessions. It is it. There is nothing in the sun but light. Light, sun is and light are one and the same thing, and it's light through and through. Like you pointed out, there is no wick inside from that you consume, like in our world. And thus, the presence of light coming from the sun is not something that the sun creates. It's a presence that reflects the truth of the sun. Therefore, it's a primary presence. This is a mashal of oil and the concept of Ein Sof. And world is a gvul. And one of the clear criterions of a gvul is that you can identify where it is not, and the means of which it comes into being. That's gvul. Like we say, a person has to breathe, and the person has to breathe constantly. But each breath is a breath. It's a finite breath. And when he breathes through his nostrils. Air has to come into his lungs via a certain path. That's how he breathes. A person can drink water as long as it comes in a proper path. But if he jumps into the lake, he'll drown. You can't consume water in an unlimited, in such an abundant manner. So gvul and bli gvul are really they don't recognize one another, and therefore, for one to come from the other is impossible. Because they don't recognize each other. They're not made of the same stuff at all. However, okay, this is where we need to understand the next step. However, it's impossible there to be the existence of worlds and coming into existence and the creation of worlds. It has to come from the Gila de Ein Sof. I'm sorry? This Havas Oilam cannot be but from the Gilui of Ein Sof. In other words, in order to affect worlds, you have to resort to Ein Sof, and Ein Sof has to create it, because this is the only resource there is to create. It has to come from Ein Sof. Ukiyodua, as is known, shekol pu'ulo, that every effect or action or accomplishment, hu alidei his galus koyach hapoyel dafka. A pa'ula comes to be as a result and through the expression of the koyach hapoyel, of the koyach that makes it be. What does that mean? So, we always give this illustration that if I want to move this watch over here, no matter how strongly I want to move it there, and my will, there's nothing can stay my will, I can prevent my will from doing what I want to do. How is it actually going to happen? If I actually pick it up and move it. By the fact that I have a will that it should happen, it's not going to happen. The koyach hapoyel has to be nizgala, and then do the effect of it. In other words, as long as it stays within me, I want, it's not going to happen. It has to come outside of me, and to have that effect, make that action. Therefore, that means that in order to affect creation, there has to be a koyach hapoyel, a gilui, an expression, an act from Oyer Ein Sof to do this action. V'arei hagilui de Oyer Ein Sof hu bebchinas bli gvul kanal, but if Oyer Ein Sof comes begilui, it is bebchinas bli gvul, ve'nei be'erech ha'olamei. And it is not in proximity to worlds. So how is this going to affect the creation of worlds? The worlds cannot be created but by the Oyeris of getting involved in creating. They cannot be created automatically because I want. There has to be koyach hapoyel b'nifa. But, so therefore that means that Oyer Ein Sof has to affect, has to become begilui externally and do this action of creating. But Oyer Ein Sof is Ein Sof. And it cannot do an action on a worldly level. If Oyer Ein Sof should do an action on the worldly level, then the world is not world. Zehu Shem Elokim. Therefore, Zehu Inyan Shem Elokim. This is the function of the Shem Elokim. And what is the effect of the Shem Elokim? Shem Metzamtzem Umalim Umastir Azoir Shem Havaya. It limits. Metzamtzem means it limits. And then conceals the oil of Shem Havaya. And this results in the fact that there is a gilui of Shem Havaya, a gilui of Oyer Ein Sof, but not in a Ein Sof manner, in a manner that can affect an action in the world. This is similar to a person getting very excited about a certain thing. His whole nefesh, his whole person is excited about it. And if he's so excited, he cannot do the action properly. Then he does the action with his whole self, and no action is going to happen. If you have an idea, and you're excited about the idea, how do you express this idea? You have to contain it, and organize your thoughts, and organize your words, so that it comes out in a finite and limited manner. The excitement alone, if it comes forth, it's not going to do or accomplish anything. Same thing when a person has to write. He has to be able to concentrate on the writing and limit the action to writing exactly what he is writing right now. The fact that he's all excited about the idea that he's writing can only disturb his writing. He has to be able to contain himself and allow this idea to come out in a organized, very limited fashion, so that he can now focus in on writing it. Even though, what is he writing? The same idea. And what's the koyach behind it? The koyach behind it is this idea. Is the emotion. But it has to be nisamtzim. And this is the effect of the Shem Elikim. It's mitzamtzim umalim umaster Hashem Havai. In other words, the koyach to create is taki a koyach in seif. It's from oyer in seif. It's a koyach eliki, and therefore it is koyach in seif. The world, even after Shem Elikim, and even after the tzimtzum, and all that the Seder Ishtalsel that he went through, it is still a perfect miracle. It's a godly miracle. It's a koyach eliki, koyach in seif. But this koyach eliki was contained so that it comes out in a mitzumtzum, in a narrow and a limited fashion, so that you have a world, while the world is still representing a koyach eliki, a koyach bilti bal gvul, but it goes through the conduit, a finite process. That's a Shem Elikim. And this is what we're saying here. Zeu Shem Elikim, Shem Tzamtzim Omalim Omastir So Oyer, the Shem Havaya. It conceals the oyer of Shem Havaya. What does it mean? It conceals the oyer of Shem Havaya. To understand this principle, conceals the oyer of Shem Havaya, you have to go back to the mashal of Rav and Talmud. That which to the Talmud is a whole discovery, and it has to be proven to him, he has to understand it logically. To the Rav is the most obvious truth. And the Rav can come to the Talmud and says, why don't you understand? Don't you see? That way, nothing is going to happen. The Rav then has to conceal the oyer, that's the oyer. He has to conceal this oyer, this view, this vision, that this is an obvious truth. This is a primary truth. And be able to see it from a perspective that it's not an obvious truth. It's something that needs to be proven, needs to be explained. Even though the Rav still knows, still sees that this is an obvious truth. But he concealed that light so that he doesn't look at it from that perspective. He's able to see it as a mitzias of seichel. A mitzias, something that needs to be developed and proven. This is the pshat that is malim the oir of Shem Havaya. Oir of Shem Havaya is an oir ein sof. What is ein sof? We said before, ein sof means it's an obvious truth. It's a primary truth. And that and world and that partners cannot join together. And Shem Elokim conceals that oir. And then creation can come about. Even though it's still rooted, it still comes from the same koyach, from Elokus. But now you don't see this Elokus, this primary truth of Elokus. You see only the koyach of Elokus, the mitzias of Elokus, and then the creation can come about. This is what he says over here. Manu master is ha'oir v'shem havaya. The oir v'shem havaya is what we explain now. The who, and that is shemis'aleim bechinas pnimius v'yatzmius ha'oir v'shem havaya. Remember our discussion of pnimius v'yatzmius. Pnimius v'yatzmius means this essential truth, that which is, like they say, a primary truth. The pnimius atzmius aspect of Shem Havaya is nisal. It's concealed. Ve'enai meir, and then it does not come forth. What remains? Rag bechinas ha'or chitzonius mimenu. Only a ha'or chitzonius, only an external ha'or. What does an external ha'or mean? What does ha'or chitzonius mean? The effect of it, exactly. Exactly, right. Not it itself, but how it affects. So only ha'or chitzonius mimenu is meir. The ha'or azu, and then this ha'or is mislabeshes bekelim desesfira datzilus. That comes formulated in kelim desesfira datzilus, which means that this ha'or comes through in a very organized fashion. The b'chinas is chalkus, chochma v'chesed kul. Where this ha'or is presented in a narrow path. It's presented in an organized fashion. What is the organized fashion? This is the Esespheres. One of the primary inyanim of Esespheres. What is the function of Esespheres? After 10, it is the organization. From Chochma comes Bina, from Bina comes Das. And from Das come Chesed and Gvura and Tiferes. Yeah. Well, we explained Atzilus is not really his habit, not really a created world. But this is what enables the world in the creation. In that respect, there are different levels. Now, what's relative to our world, Atzilus is not a world. It's a Elokus. And even though there is Esespheres, but these Esespheres are Elokus Mamash. What does this mean? That even though it is Esesphiris, and Esesphiris by definition means that it's a Ha'or Chitzonis. It is a Ha'or Chitzonis. But even the Ha'or Chitzonis, when you recognize how this Ha'or Chitzonis is connected to the Pnimis and to the Atzmius, it already has of the quality of the Pnimis and Atzmius. Like in the case of the Moshel of the Rav and the Talmud. Like we said before, the Rav, even when he presents the Seichel in a fashion that the Talmud should be able to understand, to him, he sees in every word the Pnimius of the Seichel. The moshel for that is somebody who's standing on a mountain and he's describing the panorama that he sees. So he sees the panorama. When he's talking about it, describing, oh, I see this, I see this, I see that. All of these things that he's describing to the people down on the bottom, they know individual pieces. To him, all of these pieces are part of the entire panorama. He sees in each one of them how it all describes the entire view, how it's part of the whole truth. So this is the way it is in Atzilus. It is in Esesphiris, but in the Esesphiris there is the Gilui, there is the cognizance of where it's coming from. This is the Chochmah de Atzilus where Keser shines through. And then when this Ha'ora is mislabish in the Kelim of Esesphiris de Atzilus, in his Chalkus, Chochmah v'Chesed, this is the function of the Kelim, that it subdivides, it takes the Oyer Ho'eliki in an orderly fashion. So then v'yesh lo b'chinas erech v'shaychos lo ilameis. Then it has an erech and a shaychos. It has some kind of a similarity. That's erech. And a connection, a relationship to worlds. Even though in Atzilus itself, as we said, the question whether Atzilus is a world in itself is a whole question. But it has similarity to world. And therefore from there can be created a world. Just like the Mashpia, the Rav is able to, when he is able to focus in on the Seichel in a limited fashion, in the Chitzonis HaSeichel, then he can relate to a Talmud who knows nothing about the Seichel. He can see the Seichel from a higher perspective. But once he can identify Chitzonis in the Seichel, then he can now relate to a Talmud who doesn't know anything about the Seichel, to whom the Chitzonis HaSeichel is the whole thing he has. And that has been this is what worlds are. Yes, world is. World is that it doesn't have anything but what you give it. Elokus has everything. World has only that which you put into it. And thus this is k'moi seichel ha'metzumtzom shel ha'mashpia. Just like the limited seichel of the mashpia. Shahu lefi yerech hamkabel. That this seichel ha'metzumtzom, even though it's in the mashpia, but it is already lefi erech hamakame. It is already in proximity, and you can relate and understand the makabe. V'yachar kach, and afterwards, the next step, aredei chitzonius hakeli. Then comes this is the oires in kelim. Then there is chitzonius hakelim, the functional part of the kelim. Varedei haparso hamapseket ben atzilus libiyah. And then further, with the effect of the parso. Parso is like a gap, a break that interrupts, interferes between atzilus and biyah. By Mashukos when Apasa that he said that Parsa is like Yin Hamisholi. In other words, Parsa means there is some kind of a gap, it doesn't go a straight line. Then through this Parsa, Nimshach Oir, Lefi Erech Oilam is Balik Vu. Then comes an Oir that is in proximity, that can relate to Oilam is Baalei Gvul. Notice, till now we said it's Be'erech Oilamis. Now we say it becomes Be'erech Oilamis Baalei Gvul. Because when we spoke about before Be'erech Oilamis, we're talking about Atzilus. Atzilus is not a Baal Gvul in the real sense of the word. Because in Atzilus there is a sense of a Lakus. So it's not Baal Gvul. But it has an oilam quality. In the fact that there is an order to it. And there is a sense this is coming from this is coming from this. Some kind of organization. But then, further down through Chitzonius, Akelim, and the Parse, then the oil can come and become Lefi Erech Oilamis Baalei Gvul, that it can relate to Oilamis Baalei Gvul. Lahaves Oilamis Biyah. To create Oilamis B'riyat Shirasi, which is Oilamis Baalei Gvul.
This Chitzonius
Kelim. In Kelim itself, there is also Pnimius and Chitzonius. And the principle in this is, in simple terms, there's a Keli and the Oyer. The Pnimis of the Keli is that part of the Keli that relates to the oil, that takes the oil in. Chitzonius of the Keli is that which expresses outside of the Keli. So when the Keli relates to the oil, that's a Pnimis. That part of the Keli is almost like the oil itself. It's bottled completely to the oil. And then there is Chitzonius HaKeli, how the Keli expresses this. So, to give us a handle and illustration of this, in the Seichel, when you think of an idea, any thought that you experience, anything that you think about, even the most subtle and the deepest thought, you are thinking with a language. You're thinking with what's called with oisius. Except these oisius are not the type of oisius that you speak. And if you were to say these oisius, there would be no connection between one word and another. So what kind of oasis is this? These are oases that are actually emanating, coming from the seichel itself. Just like in our moshel, I gave you the moshel before, when you're observing a panorama with sight. At the time when you're observing it, you focus, you just on observing the whole thing. You don't even identify individual pieces. Everything blends together, and you see the the whole expanse. So you are thinking, and you have oisias. But these oisias are that which comes straight from your view, rather than that which you create in order to express and to explain what you're seeing. The reason that there are oisias, the reason that you think with oisias, is that since that which you see and you are two separate things, therefore you have to translate what you see in your thought process. But when you are seeing it, you're not trying to create an image in your mind. You're not trying to create something that you would tomorrow remember, be able to repeat. You're trying to focus in and experience what you see. But even just to experience what you see is already vitoisis, because you and this thing are two separate things. So there is a means by which you identify, you relate with this which you see. That's called oasis. But these oasis are inseparable from the thing that you see itself. This is called pnimis akeli. When the keli is bottled and completely under the spell of the oil. Then there is chitzonis akeli, where you're reflecting back, okay, what did I see? After that, you are separate, you're away from this vision. And you try to reconstruct. This is the chitzonis, this is what remained with you when you're away from the oil. That's the chitzonis. Because you don't have the etzem oil anymore. You don't have the experience itself anymore. And from this comes, then afterwards, an oil that can relate to oilmas baligvu. And as we explained before, what does it mean? They can relate to oilmas baligvu. He can speak to someone like the Rav can speak to a Talmid who knows nothing more than what the Rav tells him. And the Rav has to explain to him everything in orally, and he has to make sense of it and prove it to him, give him the ability to think of it and to understand it. Because the Talmud doesn't have any ability on his own at all. Any vision of his own. This is the Balik Gvul. Balik Gvul means he has what you gave him. Doesn't have any of the essence itself. You with me? Okay? So this is the Inyan of Havaya and Elokim. There has to be Shem Havaya. Shem Havaya, this is the Gilui, this is the Oyer. But in order to affect the creation, which needs be from the Oyer, from this Oyer, for this Oyer is Bli Gvul, therefore this Oyer has to be put through a process of tzimtzum, so that it loses its Bli Gvul quality. Does not really lose it, because it's still rooted in the Ein Sof. But you could now see the Chitzonis without seeing the Pnimius. Let's take a mashal that we can talk straight on, right? You want to teach somebody how to build a table. What will be the first thing you're going to teach him?
Show him how the table looks.
No. Wrong. I'm going to teach him how to bang in a nail. Nothing to do with the table. Once he knows how to bang in a nail straight, and it should stick, then you go to the next step and show him. You see, banging a nail, this piece of wood sticks to this piece of wood. And if you put in 4 pieces of wood, then you have some kind of a thing that stands on its own. You don't want to start right away from, I want to build a table. You know, you're a cabinet maker. You don't start building cabinets. You start doing little things. If you're going to tell him, start teaching him building a table, he won't be able to, he won't learn it. You have to teach him a limited thing that can exist. That's what's called chitzonius. On its own. Just the mitzvahs. Just the ois. Aleph. How do you learn how to read? You learn an aleph. Okay. All right. Okay, we are on this line. Ach hinei. Everybody has the place? A third from the top. The line begins Ach hinei. Okay? Ach hinei. But however, kol bechinas helen v'hester hanal. The Shem Elikim. The whole effect and the whole concept, the aspect of the Helem, of that the Shem Elikim affects, Harei Lagabe Atzmus Ein Sof, from the perspective of Atzmus Ein Sof, Atzmus Ein Sof itself, Ein Zeh Malim or Master Klal. He does not conceal at all. Okay, let's stick to our motion of building a table. So the Talmud is learning how to bang a nail. But the teacher knows how banging a nail is part of building a table. He knows he's not teaching him to bang a nail. He sees in every action, in every part of it, the whole thing. We're not going to teach him anything that has nothing to do with the task at hand. But the Talmud doesn't know what he's teaching him. He knows he's teaching him how to bang a nail. So, that's what we say. Lagabe atzmas in itself ein zamalim u'masti klal v'kanal b'moshel. And as we explained before in the moshel, shalagabe hamashpia, that from the perspective of the mashpia, ein shum helem, there is absolutely no helem. Umeir etzloi, and by him shines through. Kol eimek sichle b'chochmosei, the entire depth of his seichel and his wisdom. Gam b'haseichel hamtzumtzom v'hamsholim, even in this narrow and limited seichel, and in all the misholim kanal. K'makein yuven kaviyochel l'maylo. The similar meaning we will understand l'maylo. The lagabe oirein soiv, that from the perspective of Ein Soiv, Ein Shum Tzimtzum V'Hester Klal, there is no effect of the Tzimtzum V'Hester at all, which means, practically speaking, in fact, the Oir Ein Soiv Nimtzo B'Mokim HaCholol, that Oir Ein Soiv is actually present in the Mokim HaCholol, in this vacant space, le'achar ha-tzimtzum, that is affected as a result of the tzimtzum. This is what the tzimtzum is described as doing. That the tzimtzum creates a vacant space. So what does it mean that the tzimtzum creates a vacant space? Not that it vacated the Oir Ein Sof. You can't vacate the Oir Ein Sof. The Oir Ein Sof is present in this Mokim HaCholol, even Yachar HaTzimtzum, K'moi Koydem HaTzimtzum, just as it was before the Tzimtzum. Ukmei Shakosuv, and as the Posik says, as Hashomayim v'ez ha'oretz, Ani Molem, that Hashem says that I fill Shomayim and Oretz, which means that Eibishter himself cannot be displaced or vacated. Uksiv, and the Pasuk says, "Hayusos it is b'mistorim ani lo yarenu." Can a man hide in hiding and I should not see it? Impossible. Why? Not because the Eibishter has X-ray eyes; he can see behind the wall, because he is there. He's all over. Shagam le'achar kol ha'alomes ve'hasteirim, which is telling us that after all these alomes ve'hasteirim, nimtzo ha'oyer de'in soiv boru b'chol mokem. The Oyer Ein Sof is present everywhere. The leis asar ponui minei klal, because there is not a place that is vacant of him at all. He is everywhere automatically. Ukmei Shekosov, as the Pasuk also says, Imes Shomayim, if I should rise up to the heavens, Shomot, you are there. Vatzio She'el, and if I spread out in the She'el, under the ground, Hineko, here I find you also. Wherever I go, I find you. I go to Shomayim, I find you. I go in the She'el, in the ditch, in the deep, I also find you. The Gam b'She'el v'Ored v'Eretziv v'Tzamoves, which is saying that even in She'el Eretziv v'Tzamoves, which means in a dark and a dry land, meaning b'Bchinas Tachlis ha'Helem v'Ha'Hester, in the deepest darkness, where there is Helem v'Hester, complete concealment of any light, Gam Shom Nimtzo Oyer Ein Sof Baruch Hu. Oyer Ein Sof Baruch Hu is there too, present, unaffected. As we said before, when we started this whole discussion this morning, today, that The creation, regardless of the fact that it is metzumtzum, it's a tzimtzum, and it's B'Halam V'Hester and so forth, the creation remains the same miracle, exactly. It's a godly miracle. Nothing changed because of the B'Halam V'Hester. Except we don't see this miracle. But in essence, it's the same miracle, same godly force. The whole ha'helem hu rak l'gabe ha'nivroim. The helem, the whole effect of the concealment is only l'gabe ha'nivroim, only from the perspective of the nivroim. She'enam re'im ha'gilui oid in sof baruch. Because that's what the helem is, that they do not see how this is a gilui oid in sof. In other words, like in our experience, we see the physical entity, the piece of wood. That's a very finite and so to speak, a tangible presence. That's all we see. The fact that this tangible presence is actually representative of a Gilui Eliki, of Ein Sof, that we don't see. Because you don't see the Gilui in the Ein Sof Baruch. When we see a piece of wood, a finite piece of wood, we think it's a limited piece of wood. We don't see the infinite koyach that creates it, makes it big. But in fact, it is an infinite koyach that makes it big. How can something come to be from nothing? From not being? It's an infinite koyach. Infinite koyach means it's a koyach that is an essential presence. He can make it be. That's because he wants it to be. This is a koyach Ein Sof. All creation represents a koyach Ein Sof, regardless of the fact that the creation is a finite presence. But from the perspective of Ein Sof, Ein Shum Helem V'Hester Klal. There is absolutely no Helem V'Hester, no concealment whatsoever. Like we explained before in all the Mishalim of the Abba Talmid and the Moshel of making a table, it's all similar thing, but you have to find it. Okay. Okay, this is one step in this discussion. Like even though that there is L'Shem Elokim that creates a Helem V'Hester, this Helem V'Hester is only from the perspective of the created being, but in truth it is not a Helem V'Hester. Because the mashpia or the Ein Sof sees Oyer Ein Sof in the finite, in the limited world. Like we pointed out many times, the Rebbe said that the destruction of the world is impossible. It's impossible to destroy the world. Why is it not possible to destroy the world? If the world is a finite presence, anything finite can be destroyed. Why is it not possible to destroy it? Because it is not a finite presence. You take the infinite through a finite means. But really, it's a koyach in sof.
Anything can be destroyed.
What?
Everything that's all in source, so anything can be destroyed.
Yeah. Anything that Hashem's that since it was created by koyach eliki, therefore everything has the koyach eliki has an infinite quality to it. There's an interesting phenomenon. I think I pointed it out before, sometime before, a long time ago. That the fact is that anything physical cannot be destroyed. You can break it down into its components. You can take a piece of wood and chop it down to nitbits, to powder, or you can take it apart into components, take it apart into its chemical constituency. And you can dissolve it to a point where it's invisible, but it's still there. There's no way to destroy anything. Because it's a real presence. It seems to us nothing. Of course I can destroy it. Not a big deal. It's a real creation, it's a real presence, and it's indestructible.
Eat an apple, where's the apple?
What?
If you eat an apple, where's the apple?
Everything of the apple is still there. They disintegrate it to its components. Some of it becomes part of me, some of it goes out. Nothing is lost. Its composition is lost. Its form. But its presence is not lost. You take it apart and you disintegrate to its components, and the components to components, and so forth. But it's indestructible. You burn a piece of wood. What can be more destructive than fire? Nothing is lost.
The ashes blow away afterwards.
That's right, they blow away, but where are they when they blow away?
In the air, they blew into the ocean.
They go into the ocean, so they're in the ocean. Ultimately, they're still there. It's not Ein V'Yefes. It's Ein V'Yefes from your perspective, but it's still there. This is what the cycle of the world is. You know that, there is the forest fires, like you have in California and down in the south, forest fires. And there's the whole debate with the forest fires is a natural thing or whatever it is. But the bottom line is like this, that after a forest fire, so the fire consumes all the dry underbush that accumulated in the forest. Over the years, the trees fall down and accumulates and becomes dry, and that becomes very, very flammable, and it burns down, and all that becomes fertilizer. And within a half a year, that forest blooms.
There's some trees that need a fire to
Huh?
bring it.
Sorry?
There's a certain kind of tree that needs a fire to bring its seeds out. When the fire gets to the tree, then that's when the cones open up and the seeds come out.
Yeah.
So it's like built to be.
Okay, I'm not familiar with that, but I'm saying in general. You think the fire destroyed everything? It destroyed the form of the existence, but it didn't destroy anything really. It broke it down to its components, and now it rejuvenates. And why is this? Because the creation represents a koyach ein sof. It's a true presence and it cannot be destroyed. But so far what we've learned, that it is that from the perspective of the Creator, it remains Ein Sof, but from our perspective, it is limited. And this is why we have a world. Like you said, we have a tree. Now the tree is burnt up, don't have a tree. Went into the ocean, whatever it is. We don't have it. You ate up an apple, there's no apple. Because we can only relate to a finite form, a certain definitive form of the world. And the same thing is in the Seichel Horav, the Talmud gets a limited part of the Seichel, that which a Talmud can relate to, whereas the Rav sees in everything the whole thing. And the same thing is Lamailo, but the Shem Havai and Shem Elokim. Shem Elokim is Midas Ahelam V'Hester, and yet it is not really a concealment from the Shem Havai perspective. Okay, we'll continue a little bit further. V'hinei ba'emes, but now we have to focus in and understand that in truth, ein zeh hester amiti, this does not constitute a true concealment. Legabe hanivroim gamken. Even relative to the nivroim, I said before that legabe hanivroim, this is a helem v'hester. So it's true it's a helem v'hester, but it's not a helem v'hester amiti. So it's amiti, a true helem v'hester. What is the pshat? A true helem v'hester and not a true helem v'hester? A true helem v'hester means that he literally did not get but this finite entity. Not a true helem v'hester is that he's getting the whole truth, unlimited. But he's getting it through a finite path. So he says it's not a helem v'hester amiti. It's a helem v'hester, but it's only on the surface. The helem v'hester is only on the surface. In Pnimius, it's not even on helem v'hester. As we're going to discuss and learn it, this is similar to what we are constantly bringing up that if you look at the world, you can actually see things which are beyond world. Finite thing in the world, and you can see that the world is bigger than world, and that life is bigger than life. That a human being has a capacity and has a quality that is bigger than a finite entity, a limited human being. A human being is infinite. He has the capacity for infinity, for permanence. He has children. That's not a limited. How can a limited quality contain such a thing, to be able to create indefinitely, forever? That's not a koyach in sof in this limited entity. This is really a godly miracle. And this is where we're going to stop today. Okay, Wednesday.